What if I told you that every drawing you create has a life of its own? And what if one night, when the clock strikes midnight, they all decide to come out and play? Tonight, we dive into the darkest corners of imagination where art becomes reality, and reality becomes a nightmare. Meet Maya, a 17-year-old art student who thought she knew all there was to know about drawing. Every evening, she'd lose herself in her artwork, creating characters that felt more real to her than the people around her. Her art room was her sanctuary, walls covered with hundreds of sketches, paintings, and half-finished masterpieces. But what Maya didn't know was that her bedroom held a secret that would change everything. It all started with a simple dare from her best friend during a late-night video call. "Draw something really creepy, Maya. Let's see if you can actually scare someone." Maya laughed and pulled out her tablet, stylus in hand. "Oh, I'll show you creepy," she whispered to her black cat Pixel, who had been watching her with those unnervingly intelligent green eyes. As Maya drew, something strange happened. The lines seemed to flow from her stylus, as if guided by invisible hands. She was creating a character she called the Dweller, a tall, skeletal figure with long, grasping fingers and eyes like empty wells. With each detail she added, the air in her room grew heavier. The shadows seemed to move, and Pixel's fur stood on end. "This is actually pretty good," Maya murmured, not noticing how the drawing on her tablet seemed to be watching her back. The Dweller's black eye sockets seemed to follow her movements, and when she leaned closer to examine her work, she could swear she heard a whisper. "Free me." Maya pulled back, looking around. "Did you hear that, Pixel?" But her cat was now staring intently at the screen, pupils dilated, hackles raised. It was 11:47 p.m. when Maya realized she wasn't alone. She had drawn dozens of characters over the years. Brave knights, fierce dragons, quirky monsters. But tonight was different. As midnight approached, her room began to breathe. The drawings on her walls started moving. A sketch of a knight with a broken sword was slowly turning its head. A water dragon painting was rippling like disturbed water. But it was the Dweller that made Maya's blood freeze. Its hollow eyes were now glowing with an otherworldly light, and its paper mouth was opening and closing silently. "This isn't possible," Maya whispered, but even as she spoke, she could feel something shifting in the air around her. The ordinary world of her bedroom was dissolving, replaced by something far more dangerous, a realm where her imagination had taken control. When the clock struck midnight, Maya's world erupted into chaos. The Dweller stepped out of her tablet, no longer bound by paper and pixels. It was massive, towering over her with a presence that made the air itself tremble. But it wasn't alone. One by one, every character Maya had ever drawn began to emerge from their frames. The brave knight she'd drawn in 3rd grade materialized, sword in hand. The fierce dragon from last month's commission unfurled its wings, breathing digital fire. Even the cute chibi characters from her happy-go-lucky art phase began to move, their cheerful faces now twisted with an otherworldly hunger. "What's happening?" Maya cried out, but her question was answered by the silence of too many pairs of eyes staring at her. She had created an entire universe, and now it was demanding to be acknowledged. The worst part wasn't their appearance. It was the realization that Maya's emotions had shaped them. Every doubt, every fear, every nightmare she'd ever had while drawing had been absorbed by these characters. The Dweller, born from her challenge to create something scary, had become the manifestation of her deepest terrors. The knight, originally meant to be heroic, now dripped with the darkness of Maya's self-doubt. The dragon, created in a moment of frustration, breathed poison that infected everything it touched. Even her happy drawings had twisted into something predatory, their cheerful smiles now displaying rows of needle-sharp teeth. "You're my creations!" Maya shouted, defiance mixing with terror in her voice. "You can't hurt me!" But the Dweller's laugh was like paper tearing, and its voice was the sound of her own fears echoing back. Oh, but we can, and we will. In her moment of greatest fear, Maya realized the truth that would save her. She wasn't just a victim of her own imagination, she was its master. Every line she drew, every color she chose, every emotion she poured into her art had been deliberate. The power had always been hers. As understanding dawned, Maya reached into her backpack and pulled out a fresh sketchbook. With shaking hands but growing confidence, she began to draw. But this time she drew with intention. She created a barrier of light, drawing symbols of protection, hope, and strength. The characters that had terrorized her began to recoil. "These aren't just drawings," Maya said, her voice steadying. "They're my choices, and I choose to take control back." What followed was the most intense battle Maya had ever fought. Not with fists or weapons, but with the raw power of creation itself. She drew portals to banish the dweller back to the realm of unfinished sketches. She painted rainbows that washed away the darkness from her dragon. She sketched bandages that healed the wounds of her night. But the dweller wasn't finished. It had grown too powerful, feeding on Maya's fear and doubt. As it reached toward her with shadow tendrils made of her own ink, Maya realized she had one choice left. She picked up her original tablet, the one where it all began, and did something that terrified her more than any monster. She deleted the dweller's file. The creature's scream was the sound of corrupted data as it dissolved back into nothing. As dawn broke over her city, Maya sat surrounded by her creations. But they were no longer monsters. By choosing to face her fears and reclaim her power as an artist, she had transformed them back into what they'd always been meant to be, expressions of her creativity and hope. The dweller was gone, banished not by destruction but by Maya's refusal to let fear control her art. The night returned to protecting her dreams. The dragon became her guardian, and her cute characters filled her room with genuine joy. Maya learned that night that the real horror wasn't in the monsters we create. It was in the fear that we might be powerless against our own imagination. But for every dweller we might accidentally summon, we have the power to draw something better. As she closed her sketchbook that morning, Maya smiled. She had discovered the most important lesson of all. The artist is never truly alone when they have the power to create their own heroes.